Mr. McCoy back with today's edition of Literacy Corner. It features becoming an expert on a topic and learning more about that topic, and we have 3 interesting topics. Here they come now. Whenever you are learning about a subject like Francis Marion or Molly Pitcher, it's always important to use more than one source. When you delve into more than one source, you inevitably find information that you didn't know before. Likewise with science topics such as matter, molecules, you can actually derive information about those topics from poetry as well. But up first, we get to learn more about Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox. Francis Marion was a Revolutionary War commander known as the Swamp Fox for his guerrilla tactics that he employed to harass the British in the South during the last few years of the Revolutionary War. Francis Marion was born on February 25, 1732, to Gabriel and Charlotte Marion on their plantation in Berkeley, South Carolina. Francis lived with his parents and siblings for about 5 years, then the family moved to another plantation near Georgetown, South Carolina. A young lad with a thirst for adventure, Marion served aboard a schooner that sailed to the West Indies. The adventure turned all too real when a whale sank the boat, killing 2 of the crew. Young Francis survived being adrift in a small boat for a week and vowed to remain on land. Like many men his age, Marion served in the British Army during the French and Indian War, for a time serving under William Moultrie. He noted with interest the tactics used by Native Americans like the Cherokee and filed the information away in case he might need it in the future. He returned to the farm after the war and then served for a time in the South Carolina Provincial Congress. He bought his own plantation, which he called Pond Bluff, in 1773. When the Revolutionary War started, Marion found himself captain of a regiment posted to Fort Sullivan near Charleston, which he and his men built. They repulsed a British invasion, and Marion spent the next 3 years there. After extensive training, he and his men joined Benjamin Lincoln in the Siege of Savannah in late 1779. The following year, Marion suffered a bizarre accident, breaking his ankle when he jumped out of a second-story window. He was not in Charleston when the British Army seized the town. Marion and several dozen other men later attacked the town and freed 150 Americans being held captive. Marion was also not with the main army when it suffered defeat at the Battle of Camden. So what new information have you learned about Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox? Share with your fellow listener. Up next is Molly Pitcher. Who was Molly Pitcher? Listen carefully for additional detail.
On a hot June day in 1778, the American rebels and the British to face near today's Freehold in the last major engagement of the Revolution fought in the North. The battle was a draw, but it produced a new American hero, Molly Pitcher, who assumed her husband's duties after he was wounded. In his journal entry, Continental Army veteran Joseph Plum Martin wrote, "A woman whose husband belonged to the artillery and who was then attached to a piece in the engagement attended with her husband at the piece for the whole time."
Molly Pitcher was a woman from the Revolutionary War. There are a lot of stories about how Molly fought in battles, different battles during the war. In most of the stories, she bravely takes over firing a cannon for her wounded husband. So, was she a real person? Where did the name Molly Pitcher come from? Molly Pitcher is likely a nickname used by soldiers for the women who carried water out to the battlefields. The name Molly was often used as a nickname for Mary. The name Pitcher probably came from the pitchers they used to carry the water. The cannons that were used during the Revolutionary War needed to be constantly cooled down with fresh water. After firing a shot, the soldiers would soak a sponge attached to the end of a ramrod and then clean out the inside of the barrel. Mary Ludwig Hayes is often cited as the inspiration for the Molly Pitcher stories. Mary grew up in Pennsylvania and then married a barber named William Hayes. When William enlisted in the Continental Army, Mary became a camp follower. At Valley Forge, she helped take care of the soldiers by doing laundry, cleaning, and cooking. Mary's husband became an artilleryman working on a team that loaded and fired cannons. Mary helped out by being a water carrier. Whenever the team needed water for the cannon, they would shout out to her, "Molly, we need another pitcher," perhaps giving her the nickname Molly Pitcher. During the Battle of Monmouth, Mary was working as a water carrier when her husband was wounded. Mary had been watching him load the cannon for a long time and knew exactly what to do. She immediately took over for him at the cannon and fought for the rest of the day. At one point during the battle, an enemy musket ball flew right between Mary's legs. Mary bravely made the remark, "I'm lucky that didn't pass a little higher." Then she continued to load the cannon. Another woman who inspired the Molly Pitcher legend was Margaret Corbin. Margaret was the wife of John Corbin, an artilleryman with the Continental Army. John's nickname for Margaret was Molly. Similar to Mary Hayes, Margaret worked as a camp follower and also a water carrier for the cannons. Margaret was carrying water for the cannons at the Battle of Fort Washington in New York when her husband was killed. She quickly took over firing his cannon. As the British advanced, Margaret came under heavy fire and was wounded when a musket ball struck her arm. The British eventually won the battle, and Margaret was taken prisoner. Because she was wounded, the British set her free on parole. In general, historians believe that the stories about Molly are folklore, but that they are based on real tales about a number of real women. The two most famous of these women are Mary Ludwig Hayes and Margaret Corbin. So what have you learned about Molly Pitcher that you didn't know before? Share with your fellow listener. And now, a poem, Matter of Mass. Listen for information about the structure of matter. Matter, oh matter, what do you mean? A substance so diverse, yet with one thing to glean, a measure of mass that is oh so true, from the tiniest atom to the whole earth that grew. Mass is the measure of how much you weigh, from the heaviest elephant to the smallest fish that play. It's what gives you substance and what makes you whole, and without it, you'd be like a ghostly soul. All matter has mass, that much is clear, and the greater the mass, the more force to fear. Gravity pulls it in and holds it so tight that even the mightiest planet can't fight. But why does mass matter, you might ask? Well, it's what gives matter its strength to last. It's what makes up everything in this world, from the ground beneath us to the flag we unfurl. Mass is what gives us the power to move, to dance, to run, and to groove. It's what makes us solid and not just air, and without it, we'd be just floating out there. So, matter of mass, we thank you so for being the substance that helps us to grow, for giving us substance and strength to be, and for making this world the place it can be. So what is the matter of mass? Share with your fellow listener. This marks the end of today's edition of Literacy Corner. Another is coming soon, and it will be equally revolutionary.